So welcome to the TechCraft podcast. I'm your host Ravi Mandal, Director of Engineering at TechCraft, and we have a new guest today, Karvika Thapa. Welcome to the show, Karvika ji.
Thank you. Great to be here.
Yeah, thank you very much for taking your time and being here and talking to me on this podcast. To the audience who don't know you or want to know more about you, right, could you please introduce yourself and how did you end up becoming the CEO of Kimbu Tech?
Sure. I lived most of my life in US. So I did my master's there and worked for many years, 14 years there, and came back to Nepal a few years back, and then started Kimbu Tech because that's what I felt I could bring back and give back to the community here. That's pretty much it as of now. And I'm a mom with two girls, 7-year-old and 5-year-old. Having said that, I also run another company called Simjang, and that is more sort of BPO type of business that we provide tax or tax BPO, VAT processing BPO. So that is a separate entity, but Kimbu Tech has been in my heart, and that's everything pretty much what I believe myself, and that's what's keeping me busy all the time.
Yeah, it's a great thing to know that I didn't know about the other company. How is it like to handle two different companies? Like, how do you manage that?
It's a little bit two different companies are two different
Yeah.
work, and this is sort of a new. Simjang is more of a BPO run, so it's a different model. So Kimbu Tech was slowly grown, but Simjang was all of a sudden 20 people. So right, so. It's different. I think every company brings its own challenges. But once you build that skin, that thick skin, I think you can handle anything.
Yeah. So, going back to Kimbu Tech, what are the types of projects or type of technology that you work in the company?
So we do a lot of development. We have clients from Israel and few clients from US. So the model that we do is called employee augmentation. So basically, an Israeli company owns the employee or manages the scope. So basically, I'm not responsible for what they do day in, day out. The company in Israel is responsible for what task to assign, if the task is delivered. I'm definitely in the behind as part of the escalation and making sure everything is run. We have the right people in the house, and they have the right support in terms of tools and technology. But other than that, the show is run from a development perspective, and from a support perspective, we have a client called Playform, and they are soccer-based app, and we provide 24-hour support to them. So we have girls who is 18 to 23 years old. They work from home, but we cover them 24 hours. And the app is implemented around the world. It's basically, the videos that when you play soccer, when you kick the ball, there's a video that comes in, and then the video analyzes your kick and everything behind the scene and generates a score, which helps big leagues, soccer leagues, to recruit their players and also, develop your skills itself. So which is one of the, I think they themselves were, I think they won the second most innovative product in Israel themselves. So they're doing amazing. They're run in 5 different companies, like 5 different countries. Like their support team is in 5 different. We provide the actual support. Then they have a QA team. They have a development team. They have sales team. So they work with 5 different countries. So basically, the world is definitely global now, and we are able to provide the support from Nepal. And we are growing into development and QA and a lot more on the other side. But yeah, projects like that, and we do like e-commerce sites or whatever the client comes, anything and everything can come through the door. But we take it as a challenge, and we take it one day at a time for new projects. Sometimes we can handle it, but sometimes it's too complicated that it's hard to find here. But so far, I myself and my clients have been surprised to what Nepal can offer as a tech opportunity.
Nice to hear. Do you like for the what you said, Auggie, say like you're mostly a service-based company, like
Yeah.
you find resources, train them, and then like you employ them through the company, and whatever happens in the team, it is actually handled by the other company, right?
Correct.
So like I think usually Nepalमा चाहिँ just maximum IT companies are in the same model, होइन?
Yeah.
Ani like but like what are the challenges that you face like having that particular model okay? Because resources भेटाएर हुन्छ नि like training them train गरिसकेपछि then like making them work होइन and if something goes wrong like we will be responsible for that like if that person goes on like or maybe resigns होइन we'll have to find another person फेरि it's always a rat race in a service company नि त. So like what are the challenges that you faced?
There's a lot of challenges, especially finding a resource is one of the most. I'm sure I, share that challenge with most of the tech houses in Nepal. Every person I meet, they say the same thing about challenges of recruiting the right mindset and the right employee for your company. That is a common challenge. Then you bring in and then you groom them. But we are grooming them to work for one of the top companies, right? So it's definitely challenging. So just to provide that kind of quality, that kind of communication, a culture, being Israel has a different culture than Nepal. Sometimes we are so apart. Sometimes we find a lot of common grounds. With time zones and communication way, scope, like the way you communicate, right? Sometimes you feel like no communication is right communication for, as an employee, but that's not how, the client wants. Client wants to talk about the risk and challenges every day in their Scrum call, right? Or a daily status call. But in Nepali, as a cultural thing, we want to hide issues or challenges and bring it up, when things are already a disaster, right? So we need to learn those kind of things as we go and start building those kind of things, the confidence, the communication, the overall impact, the overall understanding of the client thoughts, right? So those are all so important there. But retention is a big issue because, with tech, everything is booming in Kathmandu itself, not just internationally, but locally. Like after COVID, we've realized that tech is the way to go. Tech is the solution for every industry that exists, right? So because of that, in COVID, it was a little bit easier for us to find employees because I think there was a lot of layoffs or things that happened over COVID era, which kind of for us as we were growing, it helped us a little bit. But as things are opening up and we feel that there's a shortage of retention. In retention, we try to do all kinds of things in development and their career growth and moving them around the clients, giving them different skill set. But that's some sort of a role that you play, that not only understanding Israeli culture, but Israeli clients, they also need to understand Nepali culture, Nepali way of doing things, and the way we communicate, the way we bring up things, right? So some of the clients, they understand really well, and take it very well, but for some it's they have no patience to give them a second chance, because you can't become the world's number one country in tech if you don't if you don't push, if you don't find the perfect thing, right? You can't give second chance and be a failure, right? So that kind of gives us an additional pressure. But there's a lot of challenges, but I think there's opportunities too, that Nepal could be the tech hub in the coming generation, right?
We all are hoping for that and working hard for that, and let's hope it's going to be an amazing place for IT hub, right? So from employee perspective, right? And from a employee perspective with companies, so just say for example you start with the hiring first. You have to take the interview, and then you have to select or not, then hire them, groom them, train them, put in the project. That's completely fine. Like we have been doing that a lot. But retention, you mentioned about retention, which is very interesting to me, because retention is a very, very big problem in this industry, right? Because ek ta sabhanda first, there are Nepali companies that are actually giving very good opportunities, and they are okay benefits. That is a good thing. That also means that the developers are getting a higher salary, or maybe getting better offers, and it's getting very competitive, right? That's one thing. Second thing is remote work is possible right now. Everyone knows remote work can be done, and they just get freelancing work, and they just do, which is also a good thing for them, right? Yeah. But as a company, how do you manage retention ko case ma chai, how do you plan for that, and how do you make sure that even if this guy leaves or these resources leave, the project will still continue, nothing will be on fire?
Yeah, that's a big question, and that's definitely a challenge, in terms of retention overall. And like you mentioned, not just in our industry, it's overall Nepal's problem. Every industry is facing, the job. Definitely from a work perspective, and especially, I want to bring out that, in the international arena, Nepal is coming as a low cost and better option, in the map, right? In the digital map, or we need to capture the market being low cost and high quality, right? So when you go, or when you put yourself in that quadrant, then you have more challenges, because your employees' cost is going up every day, and the client wants to lower the rate because they have other countries, Philippines, Bangladesh, Pakistan. Other countries are also coming in the map to compete with us, or so if we don't portray ourselves as low cost and high quality, then we won't be successful in bringing the business as much as we want, right? Definitely that's where the world is going. But to our clients, it matters a little bit more about the culture being, why not go to India and come to Nepal, right? Because India, I'm sure they might find a lower cost option. For us, it's more about, bringing it to Nepal, because we bring different things in the table. We bring loyalty, that's what we say to our clients. We bring dedicated people. We bring more of a communication English perspective, that they have a better communication than on the rest of the world. So those are things that we use as a leverage. And also our population, 30 million population is a big number, right? So for us, so that's another group, and we have a lot of our unemployment rate is really high. So that kind of gives us an easier to bring the business, but then keeping that balance between the employee and the company is definitely a challenge. So, and that's the reason that we don't have really, really big shops like TCS and Accenture in Nepal, because nobody has been able to invest in that level. Nobody has been able to have that kind of vision, or that kind of exposure and that kind of mindset to kind of, produce people in 100,000, 2,000, 200,000 employees, right? So we can't even like produce 50 or 100, right? So I don't think any company can easily produce 100 employees or 100 resources in any particular technology, even though that's one of the hottest technology. We do not have that kind of budget or skills or that kind of interest or confidence that that company will give the job if they take that training, right? So we overall mindset needs to be changed, and I think things will get better as they will understand that they are working for their clients, the relationship with the business that they're working on, how much respect or learning growth they have with their clients. All of those things matter a lot as we retain them and keep them in the company, right? So that's how we deal with them, is their ownership with the parent company stays intact, and with us, the culture that we bring to them, the flexibility that comes with the quality output.
So, like you mentioned about like it's very hard to train resources, like in like a very massive number. Like it's difficult to have that in like hundreds thousands को raise मात्र. Why do you feel it's difficult, and like how have you been managing that? क्योंकि I completely understand, like without training resources you cannot run a company, right? And so like how have you been managing that, and like what was the thing that you said, like the challenges of having hundreds of resources trained?
So initially, that burden was to the tech companies, that tech companies needs to train the resources. Now the burden is distributed a little bit, and at least the academic side of it have taken some responsibility of, I need to train my students to the real life skills. I need to give them the latest technology. I need to train them in Python or other languages that exist out there, right? So the responsibility has been shared a little bit in the last 3-4 years, that colleges are coming to the industry and trying to collaborate, work. The industries are trying to go to the colleges and see that kind of bandwidth, or see if they can train early on, see if there is employees that they can hire early on. So for everything to happen, I think it's a collaborative effort. And even I myself have tried to, and I've probably trained 100 plus in graphics animation in Nepal, because I wanted to give them that tool, that front end side of it, the design aspects of it, through a company. But more than that, it's so much skill gap that exists, that you bring an employee and to be able to train them is a nightmare. We all know that, right? So why not industry go together in the college and kind of sort of build that within the 4 years of the college that they're going, rather than by the time they graduate and spend another 2 years learning about the technology, right? So it's changing a little bit, but there's a lot of work that needs to be done here, and bigger houses need to come and invest in bringing like TCS. Like for instance, we had Salesforce that was being implemented, and all of a sudden, TCS in India brings in 100 people in the room and trains, in Salesforce. And Salesforce is such a scarce resource around the world. So they have the projects right there and then, if the person leaves Friday, they have another one on Monday, right? So for us, imagine that kind of skill set or that kind of fast market, right? There's a hunger there, there's a competition there, there's money there is resources there that wants to invest. For us, like, who's going to invest? We are a tech house that we're just establishing, we're building, we are spending so much on top of like all the taxes and paperworks and everything that we deal with just to run the show. Nepal is not an easy market where you can run the show easily, right? So we all know that. But on top of that we do not have time and resources, the ROI to go and train, 100, right? So there needs to be collaborate. Either the government comes in and kind of builds that kind of, gap in the middle, or, we collaborate with bigger houses and kind of build up. Until we do that, we will still be all the smaller houses. Like, we will never be in the big, companies like 1,000, 2,000, 5,000 tech resources in one building or one company, right? So those are the things that the challenges still exist. But we need to take a guess one day at a time, and who knows, there will be a big client that comes in that wants to believe in Nepal, and maybe that's just a dream.
Yeah, I completely relate to that. And like you said about TCS, where they could ramp up hundreds of resources within a day.
Yeah.
And उनीहरू कम्पनीको 50जनाले एउटा एकै दिन रिजिग्नेसन दियो भने पनि दे वन्ट म्याटर इट लाइक दे विल जस्ट ऱ्याम्प अप अनदर टिम एन्ड दे हेभ द्याट ब्यान्ड दे हेभ द रिसोर्सेस एभाइलेबल इन इन्डियाको केसमा नेपालमा लाइक 2जनाले एकै दिन रिजिग्नेसन दियो भने पनि आगो लाग्छ कम्पनी सो तर लाइक दिस इज समथिङ द्याट एन्ड टकिङ अबाउट दि ट्रेनिङ साइडमा चाहिँ यसमा चाहिँ लाइक वी हेभ भेरी डिफ्रेन्ट पर्सपेक्टिभ एज अ कम्पनी लाइक हामी चाहिँ वाट यु बिलिभ इज विथआउट training resources, without investing back in the community, without investing in the resources, we're not going to grow. So that's the reason why like we have been doing like हाम्रो engineering team start हुनुभन्दा अगाडि हाम्रो training team ready थियो क्या like they were running trainings like we've been doing for like 5-6 3वटा ब्याच जति 4वटा ब्याच जति गऱ्यो it's been like 1.5 years like हामी every batchमा like cloud apprentice program भनेर गर्छ like we just
so you train in the cloud.
Yes. Okay. So अनि that is actually a free program. Anyone can join, even if you are working in another company. We don't care.
Maybe I will join.
Yeah, obviously. So त्यो गरेर चाहिँ and then I started seeing that shift के like हुन्छ नि first batch it was 8 people. I hired 4 of them. Perfect engineers. Then I हुन्छ नि second batch मा it was like 25 अनि पछि चाहिँ डाउन स्केल भएर 18 मा झऱ्यो लाइक अहिले चाहिँ 20 कि 25 जनाको टिम छैन अनि देयर इज समवन अदर रिसोर्स हु इज ह्यान्डलिङ द्याट अनि लाइक वेन आई सी द्याट रिसोर्स हुन्छ नि जो आएर एप्रेन्टिस प्रोग्राममा आएर सिकेर दाइ मैले त जब पाएँ अर्को ठाउँमा थ्याङ्क यू सो मच भनेर द्याट गिभ्स मी सो मच हुन्छ नि द्याट गिभ्स नट हर्ट्स द्याट गिभ्स मी सो मच के भन्ने खुसी
हर्ट त डेफिनेटली हुने
हर्ट डेफिनेटली होइन
तर आई अन्डरस्ट्यान्ड व्हाट यु आर
हर्ट भन्दा नि लाइक
at least that person has the skill set to survive.
That also true and also at the end it's a community that needs to grow, not a company.
Exactly.
And it's a industry that needs to grow, not a company. So like we are like it's okay we don't make money तर at least industry हामीले केही त सपोर्ट गर्यो भन्ने चाहिँ हाम्रो त that's thought process is अनि I think yes हामीले पनि यही सोच्थ्यो क्या पहिला like yes some big clients needs to come and like give us money to train like not gonna happen. We'll have to do it by ourselves right? So we're focusing on that train like हाम्रो goal चाहिँ like 10,000 crafters भन्छ हामीले usually that's our brand अनि we want to change lives of 10,000 people. That's our ultimate goal. So हाम्रो चाहिँ we have very different perspective on that होइन तर like let's see how it goes. अहिले पनि like I hired like bunch of resources for मलाई infrastructure team चाहिरहेको थियो and I said no I'll just hire fresh graduates. I tell them they're working in like bare metal servers handling everything अहिले नि उनीहरूले जोइन गरेको 2 हप्ता मात्र भएको छ so like I think this
a lot of babysitting happening.
There's babysitting happening but I'm so happy that they're learning so fast okay?
Yeah.
And I'm building my own team so I think this is going to change and we'll be focusing on trainings a lot in the company so yeah I think we have a very different perspective on this but like this will probably be solved. I don't know, we're trying on that.
I mean all of us are trying from our sector and maybe there'll be a golden recipe or something that will work out or I guess more than results I think we keep trying and see where it goes, right? So that's more important than just not trying.
True. So anyways talking about your client portfolio like you have worked in the US, you have client in Israel as well अनि इजरायलको केसमा चाहिँ इट मेक्स मी सो इन्ट्रेस्टिङ बिकज इजरायल इज भेरी डेभलप्ड कन्ट्री सबैभन्दा हाइएस्ट रेट अफ भ्याक्सिनेसन हुने इजरायल नै थियो जब कि भ्याक्सिन्सहरू मजाले पुगेको पनि थिएन लाइक दे हेभ सो मच टेक गोइङ अराउन्ड विथ बायोमेडिकल त्यसपछि गएर मिलिट्रीदेखि लिएर डिफेन्स एन्ड लाइक इभन जस्ट नर्मल टेक्स अनि लाइक हाउ इज लाइक सो डिफरेन्ट अराउन्ड इजरायल लाइक वाट वाज द डिफरेन्स बिट्विन द युएस
So I also lived in Israel for
Oh,
3
really?
months.
Uh-huh.
And I've traveled there 3 times. Having said that, it's one of the most beautiful country in the world. I've traveled to many, many countries, but Israel is one of them. And I've traveled, visited many tech companies in Israel. It's very eye-opening, the way, the mindset that they work for, the hard work that they put in, the brains that they have, it's a different level. I mean, the country that believes in tech and, promotes, tech products and services. And, we saw that in Israel. There were like research headquarters of many big houses, like, Micro and all the car companies, they have the research center there. The ecosystem there is amazing, like, from a product development to like your product sales. Even like the government provides like 0%, interest to sell your product. Like they'll give you line of credits if you want to sell your product, and so that gives a company leverage to sell their product and give the clients that credit, right? So like you can't imagine from the grassroots level all the way up to the sales level and support model on the government and the people and the companies, the banks, everybody has is supporting that ecosystem, right? So that's what amazed me was the ecosystem that existed. And Israel doesn't have a good immigration policy that we all know about. So, and with their very high-tech demand, they have more than 50,000. This was also a little bit older data, 3 years old data, but probably more than 100,000 now. More than 50,000 developers that they outsource every month to the rest of the world. And that's a big number. And they also do in India. Their primary right now, Ukraine, is growing as a center there because of the time zone and their language and a lot of things. But Ukraine is not as cheap. I shouldn't use that word, but from a rate perspective, it's still on the higher side,
the competitive side,
on the rates. So we can play that role. And Israel and Nepal has a very good history of a good relationship. And having said that, presenting Nepal was a challenge initially, to bring our first client to say that Nepal could be, a tech hub. Mostly if we look at the history in Israel, we have 2 major workers that go there. One is caregiver, the elder group's caregiver group, and the other one is the farmers. So Sanu Kisan. So these are the 2 groups that they have been going to Israel and contributing there, which is good that they have made a big impact in Israel about Nepalese culture and mindset and people. We have the heart, which is really good. That's what they say, and those really helped us because when we took as a tech, we presented all the data and that we could do it, and we brought them in the interviews, everything, but we still had to present Nepal in the tech, that we could be the outside of caregiver and the farming industry. We do have the tech that's coming up, and that you can be competitive, that you can come in and things like that. So that has worked out, and we got one client where so we're working with Israel is they don't take words. So if you present a developer, until they test that developer's out, they won't hire that person. So, and sometimes those tests are 12 hours. So, and it's really hard, but end of the day, those developers that are really good, they have the opportunity to work with one of the most innovative, products in the world, right? We started with one, and most of our clients are from word of mouth, and we do have a sales team there who are Israelis, and they believe in us, and we have been working so far. With the Americans, they still do not have as much, like I'm talking about the bigger houses. Bigger houses, they want to go with bigger companies like TCS and Accenture just because of the demand and the things that we talked about, big company to come in. And then on the middle companies, middle size, the offshoring mindset in US is not as much as in Israel. Because they have the rest of the world, to go, and with time zone, we are 12 hours apart. And but definitely, Americans demand the best quality, no doubt. But Israelis demand a lot more. Like the energy that, we also send some of our developers to Israel to visit and to work with their team in Israel so that they understand. And for those employees, like, it was, eye-opening, because the amount of dedication, the amount of productivity that they can contribute back to the country, is huge. In Nepal, like, if you get 40 to 50% productivity from your employee, you should be happy, right? So, but Israel doesn't work like that. Their expectation is really high in terms of productivity every day. And they're very competitive. Everybody wants to pull in employees from all around. So definitely different markets, different mindset. But I'm hoping more of the American clients coming to our way as we move forward than what we have. I think during the COVID era, we got a lot of Australian clients coming in Nepal, which is good. Now the next wave probably would be US. I know a few companies that are already coming in or in the process. So hopefully, more US clients coming in Nepal, which will give us a better rate, competitive rate than any other country in the world, and bring quality jobs here, that they can grow with the company, and the country can grow accordingly.
Yeah. So out of all this, like, I'm really fascinated about like how Israel's work. And I've been to a few countries, and the most that हुन्छ नि मलाई एकदमै सकिङ नै लागेको चाहिँ द वर्क कल्चर अराउन्ड सिङ्गापुर. I mean, I could never
lot
walk
to
that.
learn
Like,
from there.
I could never walk that. I've worked in Singaporean company for like 2 years. The work culture बाहिरको एकदमै डिफ्रेन्ट छ. अनि इजरायल, I have not like even met a Israeli person right now. Okay, अहिलेसम्म. अनि but I think they are like pretty good on that. तर like you mentioned, like there was a 12-hour test for every developers that you employ. What is that?
So, we had an interview yesterday where, he was very young, and he was very nervous in the interview, and the client kind of kept him very, quiet, very calm. And I was jumping in the middle. It's okay, just say you can't do it, or, but the test yesterday was, it was a live code testing. So he was giving a scenario, the developer, he was giving the screen to the developer, and the developer was actually writing the code. So, they built a form, and he was saying, okay, I need that form to display this data, and, things like that. So things are happening real life, right? So imagine for a very young developer to be able to be tested by one of the top, CTOs of that company. Some of these people that come to my interview, they just, feel that they're so that is so important to just meet that person and know about a product or services that is so, innovative. So that just that opportunity itself is so big for our developers to be able to, understand, groom that, the way they work, the codes that they're writing, right? So, so yesterday, so the guy was a little nervous. So now they're sending another test for him so that he could use Google, he could use anything, he could use his friend or whatever. I hope he doesn't use his friend. But, what they are trying to look is how street smart are you? What is the level of problem solving skill you have? In the real world, you're given a real life scenario, right? How can you solve? It doesn't matter if you ask Google or, ask for help, but you need to be able to solve it, right? If the code is given to you, you need to be able to solve that problem or that code. So things like they're looking more in terms of what you have than what your problem solving skill is. Like, how do you ask questions? How do you understand? What is your level of understanding? So those are the things that they measure the developers on, and they see the code base. They, and how clean have you written it? Things like that overall. So that gives them, I tell my clients that, we try to convince the developer just to come for an interview, and then you give 12 hours test, and they're already so disappointed. So it's not easy, but once they get into that, then they treat you like their own family, right? Then they're part of the internal team. Then they don't question you, right? Then they give you all whatever you need to be able to be successful, whether you need grooming, whether you need mentor, whether you need whatever you need, right? So that's the mindset that they have, is you bring the right people into the team, and then, you invest in them, you grow on them, and, build the best product in the world.
So that's really nice to hear, and also fascinates me a lot. Like live coding test, is it like data structure and algorithms, or like?
So just a coding window, and then you just write the code. Sometimes it can be on a plain notepad, right? You will say just,
so it's
write a logic, or, just
mostly
build.
algorithms.
No, actually it's real life coding. But sometimes it can also be just algorithms. Like that person can just say, what about the logic here? What function that you can use here in React, right? Mm-hmm. Things like that. So sometimes it's that. So it depends on the client, but they will make sure that what they're hiring, and understand the level of the developer's mindset.
Mm-hmm. So I'm someone who is like so afraid with live coding test.
Me too.
Yeah, because I can solve anything, to live coding test. Oh my god.
Yeah, I'm not an exam person either.
I failed multiple times, but not my core skills.
And it's us who make them so comfortable that it's okay to say no.
Yeah.
Right? It's okay to say, I can't do this, or I haven't, I've read it somewhere, but I can't remember right now. So sometimes they were also told, you can use Google, and solve this, So things like that, we've given opportunities and chances. Yeah. One client at a time.
Okay, nice to hear that. So but in terms of industries that you work with, what are the industries that you work in right now, from the company side? Could be Israel, could be US, but I'm very interested in Israel.
So industry right now, the gaming one is a big one. The other one is a VAT processing company. So they process the VAT of 4 billion and above clients. So my client processes the VATs for 4 billion. So there's only maybe less than 100 clients in the world that is bigger than $4 billion. So they process VATs for them, and those manual tasks happens here in Nepal. So imagine, like Amazon's, Facebook's, VAT processing can happen here, right? So does that, the world is getting so small. But that's the second industry that is a very recent client that we got from one of the different sources. The other one, we've done a e-commerce site where the client is a manufacturer of a makeup brand, to all the way from packaging to delivering to shipping. So overall ecosystem from manufacturing. So I was part of the design, the cap of the makeup, cream, or things like that. So it was very interesting to see how a product turned from an idea to all the way from distributing to the actual delivery to one client. So that overall ecosystem we've done. What else we've done? Not healthcare. Yesterday we were doing for HR solution client. So they have everything in HR. They started with one problem and then they just had to grow and grow and grow. So we are building for them. Then shorter projects where they have to let go a CTO or something, or developer, and they want to start here, right? That's the other one. So things like that in Israel that we've worked. Like sometimes it's just a project that you come in and you finish it off. Sometimes it comes in as a support. Sometimes it comes in as a QA, just data entry and data pulling and cleaning up and things like that. So but in US, I come from a different industry: education to healthcare to manufacturing to retail. So that kind of gives me an overall challenge or understanding of the industry. So anything and everything that comes in my door doesn't scare me. And I feel that when you've seen everything, there's no bigger thing that you can't solve, or you can just say I can't solve, right? And this is not for me. We have been given engineering projects in the recent months, and surprisingly we were able to accomplish that, building like 25-story designs in Israel. So those are the things that come our way, and we try some samples and products, and sometimes we're successful, sometimes the prototype are not successful, right? So it's been interesting so far.
Yeah, nice to hear that. So, what's your next step in terms of company ko side bata, and like from the Kimbu Tech side, like how we're planning to expand in terms of Nepal, and like what's your next goal target?
Well, I haven't talked much about the impact side of but before I go to the impact side, my focus in the next 1 year and the next 5 years would be to bring bigger tech houses in Nepal. So one of my client is Tomia, and we are the authorized partner in Nepal for Tomia. We've sold software to Ensel here. And Tomia is thinking of building a shop here, right? So and that's my goal, is to bring those bigger companies that come with bigger budgets, and then we provide services. So Tomia provides services to around the world. They have a support center in Bangalore and Delhi. Like imagine we have a top-notch support center here, one of the world-class support center. That could be an example for thousands of other companies, or bringing up here. I want bigger houses like Microsoft coming in and building a shop here. Right. So those are my vision, that collaborating in conversation, doing a prototype, selling them, hiring 1 or 2 employees, all kinds of things that we are doing just to bring them. So that's on the bigger side. And then I want to really bring in, because as you know, that we have a lot of our population that are not into core tech, right? So how do we, and tech doesn't mean very core tech, right? So how do we use those population which we have in abundant, into supporting the international client. And that was my hunger to bring in the BPOs. That was my hunger to bring in the support, right? If we can use those resources and still build the tech infrastructure or that platform, then we are into the win-win situation, right? So the BPO that we got was from Philippines. They had 160 people in Philippines that we outbid them to bring it in Nepal, right? So it was not easy. It took a year to just talk about it, right? So, but having said that, if we bring to capture that group where they're not super tech and they're not in that middle group, that's where the country needs to produce those people that can solve problem, those people that can that we do not have to worry about communication, that can think critically, that can solve problems that they with less support, with more leadership, right? So those are the groups that I'm trying to promote more here in Nepal. Having said all of these, I'm also actively involved in the community, working with Gandak University initially, and right now working a little bit with Karnali University, Midwestern University, to see how we can connect Gandaki or Karnali to a university in US. How can we bring that knowledge here? What we are missing here, how can we collaborate? How can we bring skills that we talked about, that we can bring in the country faster, right, in Python, because technology is changing so fast. And if we can develop those skill set very quickly, we can lead the world, right? We can be ahead of them. So those are the things. And if you work with the university, you can use a lot of resources to build that. We don't need a training room, they already have one. We don't need computers. We don't need students that we have to go and pitch, right? They have everything. What they need is an industry that can come in and believe in them and invest from their side. So when we have those kind of collaboration, then the bigger outputs can be produced. I'm sure TCS took a lot of help from universities or colleges in India, right? Without their support, I'm sure they wouldn't have been successful. So we need to do a similar thing on our part to be able to bring that. And definitely, the other piece is definitely leadership. We have 50% of the population as women, but in the corporate sector, it's minimal, like in whatever sector, be it on the politicians or be it on the healthcare or any other industry, or even tech and banking. We need more women as a country to produce more, right? So generate the GDP, to be in the workforce, to bring that kind of environment, right? So that is a big part of responsibility that I feel personally. So that's what I also run Women in Tech group in Facebook, which is quite popular. Women from around the world, they're part of it, and a lot of things happening, that can be talked about in general. And COVID has hit us a little bit, like hit as a, women in terms of the career a lot. We were thinking, I feel like we took 2 steps forward and then I think 4 steps backwards now because of COVID, because of the kids situation, because of the home situation, because of health and everything. So we need to step ahead and learn as a country to use that resources early on, and build on top of that, right? So then we have a diverse thinking, then we have a diverse team that we can represent internationally, right? So those are the visions that I have outside of my company hat.
All right. I think you also like mentioned your message to the audience. त्यही कुरामा हैन, and then I don't think I'll have to ask you that again. So I think I believe like we are very at the end of the podcast. It's been a very fruitful conversation. Thank you very much for coming. And I wish you all the best for what you are planning for. If you have a very short like last message to the audience, you can Please tell.
What I would like to say is, just be part of this tech boom that's happening in Nepal. Enjoy the ride, to all the tech listeners in this podcast, and all the students who are thinking that, whether you should go tech or not tech. Tech is everywhere now. There's no other industry that is not related to tech or that is not integrated to tech, right? So, Nepal is also seeing the same changes with COVID and everything, and just enjoy the ride. Be on the don't miss the train. The train is in the league, and the next 5 years is going to be a boom for Nepal, locally and internationally. Nepal is going to be in the digital map. We have a lot of developers and we have a lot of leaders that are coming in that are taking Nepal to the rest of the world. But even in Nepal, let's make it happen. Where there is problems, there is opportunity, right? So we need to grab that opportunity. We need to stop blaming and just do your best, and things will also follow.
All right. Thank you very much,
Thank you
Karvika,
so much.
for taking your time and coming here. To the audience, thank you very much for listening till this end. We'll be back with another guest very soon. Until then, have a great time. I'm your host, Ravi Mandal, Director of Engineering at TechCraft, and the host of this show, obviously. So thank you very much. Bye-bye. Have a great time.